If you are preparing for a Scrum Master interview and want a focused way to refresh your understanding and boost your confidence, you're in the right place. In this session, we'll go through the most common interview topics and help you prepare for the kinds of questions interviewers are likely to ask. For each topic, we'll discuss how to approach your answers, what mindset to bring, and the key points to remember when responding. This isn't about memorizing fixed responses. It's about building a clear, structured way to express your thinking backed by practical insight and confidence. Here are the areas we'll be covering: dealing with conflicts in the team, handling stakeholder expectations, facilitating Scrum events, supporting the product owner, coaching the team, managing team dynamics, impediment removal, adapting to organizational challenges, metrics and improvement, handling changes. Each section will help you understand what interviewers are really looking for and how to align your answers with the principles of servant leadership, team facilitation, and agile delivery. Let's get started. Dealing with conflicts in the team. Team conflict is one of the most common areas you'll be questioned on in a Scrum Master interview, and how you handle it says a lot about your ability to lead with empathy, maintain team health, and uphold agile values. Interviewers may ask, what would you do if two team members were in constant disagreement? How do you handle passive-aggressive behavior in a sprint retrospective? Can you give an example of a conflict you helped resolve? To answer well, first make it clear that you see conflict as natural and even healthy when managed constructively. Agile teams are cross-functional, often diverse in skills and mindset, and conflict tends to surface when people care about outcomes. Your job as Scrum Master is not to avoid or suppress conflict, but to create a safe space where issues can be surfaced and discussed productively. Start by talking about observation. A good Scrum Master picks up on signs early, shifts in tone during meetings, side comments, or disengaged body language. You could say something like, I try to spot the first signs of tensions before it escalates. Next, describe how you invite dialogue. Do you use one-on-one conversations first or bring it to a team setting like a retrospective? How do you ensure it stays respectful and focused on improvement rather than blame? Highlight your facilitation skills. Maybe you use techniques like lean coffee or anonymous input boards to surface thought topics, or you ask coaching style questions to help people understand each other's perspective. If you resolved a conflict, share that story. What was the issue? How did you facilitate the discussion? What changed afterward? You can also talk about prevention, how you build psychological safety, encourage team norms, or rotate pairing to build empathy among team members. Finally, make it clear that while you help resolve interpersonal issues, you also keep the team focused on outcomes. The goal is not just harmony, it's collaboration that leads to value delivery. Avoid saying things like, I escalate to management too early. Good Scrum Masters try coaching and facilitation first, using escalation only when necessary and with care. Handling stakeholders' expectations. Managing stakeholder expectation is a critical skill for any Scrum Master, and interviewers often explore this to assess how well you can balance transparency, influence, and neutrality without becoming a messenger or project manager. Common interview questions include: how do you deal with unrealistic expectations from stakeholders? What if stakeholders constantly ask for changes mid-sprint? How do you help stakeholders understand agile delivery? Begin by establishing that stakeholder collaboration is a core agile principle. The Scrum Master helps create an environment where stakeholders in the Scrum team work closely, but also respectfully, with a shared understanding of what's possible within each sprint and release. Make it clear that you don't speak for the team or make commitments on their behalf. Instead, you enable transparency so stakeholders can see progress and understand the reality of what the team can deliver. Talk about how you encourage early and continuous engagement through sprint reviews, backlog refinement sessions when appropriate, and informal check-ins. If stakeholders are involved regularly, they feel more informed and less likely to push for surprises. When expectations are unrealistic, tight timelines, scope changes, or unprioritized work, show how you respond calmly and constructively. You might say something like, I bring the conversation back to the sprint goal and the team's capacity. If changes are needed, I help the product owner facilitate a conversation about trade-offs, what can be moved out or delayed, and what impact they might have. Highlight that your role is to educate and coach stakeholders on agile principles, particularly around incremental delivery, the cost of change means sprint, and the importance of prioritization. You might mention how you have used burn down charts, roadmaps, or visual dashboard to make expectations more tangible. If you encountered resistance, maybe a stakeholder pushed for fixed deadlines or micromanaged progress, share how you addressed it. Did you facilitate a values based conversation? Did you invite them to a review session or show the impact of context switching? Finally, demonstrate that your goal is not just to protect the team, but to align expectations, maintain trust, and support collaboration between stakeholders and the team. Avoid blaming stakeholders or sounding rigid. Instead, show that you bring empathy, structure, and clarity to the relationship, all while upholding the integrity of agile delivery. Facilitating Scrum events. Facilitating Scrum events is one of the most visible parts of the Scrum Master role, and interviewers often use this area to assess your understanding of the framework, your facilitation skills, and your ability to balance structure with flexibility. Expect questions like, how do you ensure Scrum events are effective and not just routine? What do you do when team members are disengaged during ceremonies? Tell us about the time you adapted a Scrum event to better serve the team. Begin by stating that Scrum events are not just meetings, they are time box opportunities for collaboration, inspection, and adaptation. Your role as a Scrum Master is to ensure these events serve their intended purpose, evolve with team needs, and create space for continuous improvement. Let's go through each event briefly and how you might approach facilitating them. Sprint planning. You help the team and product owner align on the sprint goal. You support the product owner in clarifying backlog items and ensure the team has enough context to forecast work. You don't assign tasks or decide how much the team should take on. Instead, you guide the conversation and protect the team's autonomy. Daily Scrum. You coach the team to use this as a self-organizing checkpoint, not a status meeting for the Scrum Master or stakeholders. If it becomes mechanical, you might suggest changing the format. Example, walking the board or focusing on the sprint goal. You help the team make this their own while keeping it focused and time boxed. Sprint review. You encourage stakeholders' engagement, support the product owner in framing what was done and what's next, and ensure feedback is gathered constructively. If stakeholders are silent or disinterested, you might reach out beforehand or suggest structure for feedback. You help make them review a two-way conversation, not just a demo. Sprint retrospective. This is where your facilitation skills really matter. You create psychological safety, use varied formats to keep it engaging, and ensure outcomes lead to actionable improvement. If the team is hesitant to speak up, you might use anonymous input tools or silent brainstorming. You also help follow up on past action items so the team see values in the process. Backlog refinement, optional but important. While not a formal Scrum event, refinement often needs careful facilitation. You support the product owner in preparing backlog items, guide the team through estimation and clarification, and protect the session from turning into a design debate. In interviews, share how you adapt events to your team's maturity. Maybe you reduce the length of certain events as the team grew efficient, or add the structure to retrospectives when discussions become vague. You can also mention tools and technique like virtual whiteboards, timers, dot voting, or breakout rooms, especially if you work with remote or hybrid teams. Avoid saying you run meetings or give updates. Instead, show that your facilitation collaboration and shared ownership. Effective Scrum events are co-created by the team. You're just making that collaboration easier, more structured, and more impactful. Supporting the product owner. One of the key responsibilities of a Scrum Master is to support the product owner, not by managing the backlog or making product decisions, but by helping the product owner be effective in their role. In interviews, this topic helps reveal your understanding of collaboration, coaching, and influence without overstepping. Common interview questions include: how do you support the product owner in backlog management? What if the product owner is struggling to engage with stakeholders of the team? How do you help balance technical and business priorities? Start by making it clear that the Scrum Master and Product Owner are partners. While their focus is different, value versus flow, their success is deeply connected. You don't tell the Product Owner what to do, but you support them through facilitation, education, and removing obstacles that get in the way of their effectiveness. One way you support is by helping the Product Owner connect with the team. This may include helping facilitate backlog refinement sessions, ensuring stories are clear and actionable, and encouraging collaborative planning. You might say, I make sure the PO gets regular feedback from the developers and has time to clarify intent behind backlog items. You also help the product owner improve their collaboration with stakeholders. That might involve facilitating roadmap or release planning workshops, coaching them on stakeholder communication, or helping them prioritize based on evidence rather than pressure. If the product owner is new to Agile or struggling in the role, your coaching becomes even more important. You could share an example where you helped a PO who was overly focused on detailed requirements start to shift toward outcomes and collaboration. Another area is helping them understand the team's delivery capacity. Your support transparent forecasting, not commitments beyond reason, and ensure they are not overloaded with expectations that lead to frustration. You don't own the metrics, but you might help the PO make sense of velocity trends, lead time, or unplanned work. You can also talk about mediating between the PO and the developers when there's friction. Maybe the team questions a priority on the PO wants change with mid-sprint. You help both sides listen, reflect, and align, keeping the product vision and sprint goal in focus. Finally, you might help the PO reorganize the importance of technical health, things like refactoring or reducing tech debt. You don't make those decisions, but you encourage conversations between the team and PO about balancing long-term sustainability with short-term value. Avoid portraying the product owner as a bottleneck or someone to protect the team from. Strong Scrum Master treat the PO as a partner and enable better results through shared understanding and continuous collaboration. Coaching the team. Coaching the team is one of the most powerful and subtle responsibilities of a Scrum Master. In interviews, this topic helps reveal how well you understand team development, servant leadership, and how to guide change without controlling it. Common interview questions include: how do you coach a team that's new to Scrum? What if the team persists agile practices or doesn't engage in retrospectives? Tell us about a time when your coaching helped a team improve. Start by clarifying that coaching is not about giving orders, it's about creating the space for the team to discover better ways of working and providing the right mix of guidance, support, and challenge to help them grow. If you're coaching a new team, you might begin with foundational education, explaining Scrum roles and events, running initial training, and introducing Agile principles. But even more important is building trust and modeling Agile behavior, transparency, openness, continuous improvement. For a more mature team, coaching becomes less directive and more subtle. You observe patterns, ask powerful questions, and help the team reflect on their behavior and decision. For example, I notice we often carry over 30-40% of work into the next sprint. What might be causing that? You are not solving the problem for them. You are helping them uncover it themselves. In interviews, show that your coaching adapts to team maturity. Maybe you use structured frameworks like document stages, forming, storming, norming, performing to tailor your approach. Early on, more facilitation, later, more observation and nudging. Talk about how you foster ownership. Do you step back during daily scrum to let the team take the lead? Do you let the team own decisions around tools, estimation, or definition of done and guide only when they get stuck? You can also share how you encourage expectation. Maybe you introduced working agreements, pair programming, or a Kanban board alongside Scrum. The point is, you coach the team to inspect and adapt, not to follow fixed rules. Be ready to share examples. Maybe a team was disengaged and you help them reconnect through better retrospectives. Maybe velocity was erratic and your coaching led them to revisit how they plan or break down work. Avoiding portraying yourself as the center of the team. The best Scrum Master coach from the side, helping the team become increasingly self managing and reflective. Wrap up by emphasizing that your goal is always to grow the team's capability and confidence, not just to run Scrum properly, but to build a team that collaborates well, delivers value, and learns continuously. Managing team dynamics. Managing team dynamics goes beyond running ceremonies or tracking metrics. It's about understanding group behavior, individual motivations, and how to maintain a healthy collaborative environment. Interviewers explore this area to see how well you handle interpersonal challenges, psychological safety, and team development. Expect questions like, how do you deal with dominant or quiet personalities in the team? What do you do if there is tension between developers? How do you help a new member integrate into an existing team? Start by explaining that every agile team is different, shaped by its members, context, and history. As a Scrum Master, your role is to observe patterns, surface hidden issues, and create the conditions for honest collaboration. You might say, I pay close attention to participation's level, communication styles, and decision-making dynamics, not just during events, but in how the team works day by day. If someone dominates conversation or dismisses others, show how you address it respectfully, maybe through one-on-one conversations or by adjusting how discussions are facilitated. You could mention using techniques like silent voting, round robin sharing, or structured brainstorming to give everyone a voice. For quiet team members, you might describe how you build trust gradually, invite input in smaller settings, or create async ways for people to contribute if they're uncomfortable speaking up. Another important part of managing dynamics is handling transitions. Maybe someone left the team and a new person joined. You help reestablish team norms, adjusted the onboarding process, or guided the team through a mini reforming phase. You can also talk about balancing personalities. Perhaps your team had a strong mix of thinkers and doers, introverts and extroverts, and you adapted your facilitation style to ensure everyone felt heard and included. When team tensions arises, whether due to workload, miscommunication, or unclear roles, your role is to facilitate open conversations. Retrospective, one-on-one, or structured feedback loops can help. Share how you help teams address friction before it becomes dysfunction. You might say, I encourage the team to revisit our working agreements. We talk through how we wanted to give feedback and make decisions, and the conversation itself improved our trust. It also helps to reference tools like team health checks, sociograms, or feedback surveys if you use them to gain insights or spark conversations. Avoid sounding like you fix people or play therapist. Instead, show that you facilitate awareness and improvement, gently steering the team toward healthier, more productive interaction. Impediment removal. One of the most visible and measurable contributions of a Scrum Master is how effectively they help remove impediments. In interviews, this topic helps assess your initiative, your problem-solving mindset, and your ability to work across team and organizational boundaries without taking ownership away from the team. Expect questions like, what do you consider an impediment and how do you handle it? Tell us about a challenging impediment you help resolve. How do you balance enabling the team when stepping in when needed? Start by clarifying that impediment is anything that slows down or blocks the team's progress, not just technical issues. It could be unclear requirements, slow approvals, cross-team dependencies, tool constraints, or even team morale. The key is spotting not just what's blocking delivery now, but what could reduce effectiveness over time. You might say, I help the team surface impediments during stand-ups, retrospective, and casual conversations, and I also watch for hidden blockers like unclear roles, unspoken conflicts, or inefficient processes. When the team raises an impediment, your first step is often to encourage self management. Ask, is this something we can resolve as a team? For internal blockers like unclear stories or testing delays, the solution may lie within the team itself, and your role is to facilitate the discussion or decision making. For external impediments like unavailable stakeholders, long infrastructure wait times, or unresolved dependencies, you step in as a servant leader. You might escalate respectfully, loop in leadership, work with other teams, or advocate for process changes. Make sure to share a story where you help resolve a real impediment. Maybe a team was blocked by slow test environments and you coordinated with DevOps to introduce automation. Or maybe cross-team dependencies issues were causing delays and you help facilitate alignment through Scrum or shared planning sessions. Also, mention proactive practices. For example, do you use a visible impediment board or Slack channel for transparency? Do you track trends in recurring blockers? Do you help the team identify what's slowing them down even if it's not reported? You could say, some of the most serious impediments aren't raised directly. I try to read between the lines, slow velocity, repeated carryovers, or frustrated tone during stand up, and start conversations from there. Avoid making it sound like you personally fix every issue. Instead, emphasize that you create visibility, foster ownership, and step in when team level resolution isn't possible. A strong Scrum Master enables the team to grow more capable of identifying and resolving issues on their own, while also clearing the path when they can't. Adapting to organizational challenges. Scrum Masters don't work in isolation. They operate within larger systems that may or not may be fully agile. This topic helps interviewers understand how you respond when the broader organization isn't aligned with agile ways of working. It also shows your ability to influence change beyond the team level. Common interview questions include, how do you handle resistance to agile from other parts of the organization? What if leadership expects detailed plans or fixed deadlines? Have you ever had to push back against organizational norms? Begin by acknowledging that organizational constraints are real and a part of your role is to help your team succeed within those constraints while gently influencing change when possible. You may say, I recognize that not every part of the organization moves at the same pace. I try to meet people where they are while continuously advocating for better ways of working. If leaders expect fixed delivery dates or detailed upfront plans, describe how you introduce agile concepts in ways that align with business needs. Maybe you use release forecasts based on velocity instead of static Gantt chart, or explain how shorter feedback loops reduce risk even without locking everything down. Talk about how you work across silos, collaborating with project managers, functional heads, or operations teams who may not follow Scrum. You build relationship, offer context, and bridge language gaps between agile teams and traditional structures. Give examples of how you help shift mindset. For instance, did you organize agile workshops or lunch and learns? Did you introduce lightweight planning cadences that made stakeholders feel more in control without rigid timelines? Did you help managers understand that empowering teams leads to better outcomes? When faced with conflicting expectations like being asked to report individual performance metrics, you maintain your values. Maybe you redirected the conversation toward team outcomes or explain how Agile measures progress differently. You can also share how you've navigated budgeting, compliance, or change management in less agile environments, always balancing delivery with integrity to agile principles. Avoid framing the organization as the enemy. Instead, show that you bring empathy, influence, and patience, helping others succeed without forcing transformations. Change takes time, and good Scrum Masters adapt to the reality of where they are while nudging it forward. Metrics and improvement. Scrum Masters are expected to foster a culture of continuous improvement, and metrics play a key role in that. Interviewers often ask about this topic to see if you understand what to measure, why, and how to use the data constructively without turning Agile into a numbers game. Typical questions include: what metrics do you track in a Scrum team? How do you use metrics to drive improvement? What do you do if a leadership demands velocity comparisons across teams? Start by emphasizing that metrics are not for judgment, they're for learning, reflection, and decision making. The goal isn't to hit numbers, it's to improve outcomes through awareness. You might say, I use metrics to help the team and stakeholders have better conversations, not to assess performance, but to understand patterns and opportunities. Key team level metrics you might mention include velocity, used for forecasting, not comparison. Fluctuations are normal and trends matter more than single points. Sprint predictability, how often does the team deliver what they committed to? Cycle time, lead time, how long does it take for work to go from in progress to done? Work item age, a great metric for spotting stealth work mid sprint. Where WIP, work in progress, helps identify multitasking or flow issues. Bug count escaped defects, helps assess quality and feedback loops. If the organization is mature enough, you might also introduce flow-based or outcome-based metrics like time to market, customer satisfaction, NPS, or OKRs tied to product impact. Talk about how you use these metrics in context. For example, in retrospectives, you might review velocity alongside team morale or sprint goal achievement to keep conversations well-rounded and human-centered. When discussing improvements, focus on transparency, experimentation, and follow-up. Maybe the team noticed rising cycle time and decided to reduce WIP limits, or velocity drop, and it turned out to be due to hidden support work, which led to better backlog visibility. If you're asked about management requesting velocity comparisons across teams, explain that every team has its own context, different team size, backlog, technical domain, and definition of done. Velocity should never be used to compare teams or judge performance. Instead, suggest focusing on outcome-driven metrics or qualitative feedback. Also, mention how you help the team build comfort with metrics, especially if they had bad experience in the past. You create a safe environment where data is used for learning, not control. Avoid saying you track dozens of metrics. The point isn't quantity. It's choosing a few meaningful indicators, reviewing them regularly, and acting on what you learn. Handling changes. Handling change is at the heart of Agile, whether it's shifting priorities, involving customer needs, or changes in team structure. Scrum Masters are expected to help the team adapt without losing focus or morale. Interviewers bring this up to evaluate your agility, both in mindset and facilitation. Common interview questions include: what do you do when priorities change mid-sprint? How do you help the team stay focused during organizational changes? How do you balance change with stability? Start by reinforcing that responding to change is a core Agile value, but it must be done in a way that respects the team's ability to deliver and maintain quality. The goal is to stay flexible, not chaotic. If priorities change mid-sprint, explain that you first revisit the sprint goal. If the change aligns and the impact is small, you might help the team adjust scope. But if it's a major shift, it's better to end the sprint early, as Scrum allows, and replan, provided it's a rare and justified decision. You support the product owner in navigating this and ensure the team is part of the conversation. You could say, I don't treat change as disruption, I treat it as a signal. We inspect, adapt, and decide what to do next together. Talk about changes in the broader organization, like restructuring, leadership shift, or tooling rollouts. Your role is to shield the team from unnecessary noise, clarify what's expected, and keep people focused on delivering value. Sometimes change brings uncertainty, a product pivot, a council initiative, or team turnover. Here, you act as a coach and emotional anchor. You maintain transparency, allow space for questions, and keep the team grounded in agile principles. It's also important to emphasize change at the team level, like new working agreements, evolving definition of done or process tweaks. You facilitate retrospectives, support experimentation, and help the team evaluate what's working and what's not. When discussing changes from stakeholders or leadership, show that you promote healthy boundaries. You don't blindly implement every suggestion. You help the team and product owner assess impact, evaluate feasibility, and respond thoughtfully. Avoid framing yourself as resistant to change or overly protective. Instead, show that you balance stability with adaptability, using change as a catalyst for better ways of working, not a source of constant disruption. That was a quick tour through the kinds of questions that really matter in Scrum Master interviews, the situational challenges that test your judgment, communication, and agile mindset. If you found this useful, we've created a complete course that goes much deeper. It's called Mastering Scrum Master Interviews, 200 situational questions and answers. Inside, you'll find 200 carefully selected questions, each with detailed experience-based answers and practical commentary that explains the reasoning behind them. These aren't answers to memorize. They're frameworks you can learn from, adapt, and make your own. Whether you're just starting out or aiming to level up in your next role, this course gives you a clarity and confidence to handle interviews with ease. You'll find a link to the full course available now at special discounted rate in the resource file attached to this video or in the video description. We hope to see you inside and wish you the very best in your upcoming interviews.